This is the voice of the Report of the Week, signing on. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone listening in to this newest edition of VORW Radio International, the voice of the Report of the Week. Welcome, one and all. I hope everyone is doing and feeling okay. This program should likely be going out perhaps on Friday the 22nd of January, 2021, so that's when I'm hoping for the show to go out. This intro is being recorded, I'd say, a day or two later than the rest of the show, so having given it a listen, this show is a mixed bag, I think. When I recorded most of the broadcast, I wasn't really in a very positive temperament. I wouldn't say the show is a complete downer, but just, I just say that as a word of warning, but it's real. That's what it comes down to. So, I just say that as just a little bit of a preface, so to speak. You have been warned, right? For those of you still tuning in on YouTube, there are 3 pieces of fan art featured in the broadcast. The first piece, which I thought was fantastic, it's just great, can be credited to Kaylin, who also goes by the name Bustin' Surfboards on Instagram, so for more of the work there. The second piece is credited to Abraham Simon. The third piece is credited to an anonymous artist. If you would like to submit a piece of fan art to be featured in an upcoming show, you're more than welcome to do so. All that I ask is that you submit the piece of fan art as an email attachment, or just upload it to an image hosting website, and email me the link to that. You can reach me at VORWINFO@gmail.com. Finally, if you are interested in advertising on this program and promoting your goods, services, music, YouTube channel, anything, if there's anything you are interested in advertising and promoting, this is the place to do it. We have a very good deal for advertisers, and if you are interested in this, at least contact for more information. You can reach me again at VORWINFO@gmail.com. Finally, portions of this broadcast on YouTube may be removed to comply with the community guidelines. Please be wary of that, and I recommend you consider checking the other streaming platforms to see if the full show is there, if it is not here on YouTube. And with that, sit back and enjoy the broadcast. This is VORW Radio International. Collective Fear is a one-man electronic music project out of Boston, Massachusetts, who released their first single, Pity, on October 11th, 2020. The music evokes dark themes and moods of synth-pop, dark wave, and shoegazing, while maintaining a catchy pop sensibility. Collective Fear has drawn comparisons to artists such as Cold Cave, Health, and Youth Code, and would be a great listen for any folks who enjoy electronica in general. With a variety of new releases at the ready, Collective Fear is poised to make an impact in 2021. Pity is available on all major streaming platforms, such as Spotify, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, Apple Music, Tidal, Deezer, and many more. Please feel free to give a follow on Spotify or Instagram at instagram.com/collective_fear. If you'd like to support the band and stay up to date on future releases, I appreciate your support and hope to connect with all of you as listeners in the future. Are you located in the greater Sacramento area of Northern California, or know someone who is? Maybe you're considering moving or relocating to that part of the state. There's a lot of realtors out there and lots of competition, lots of folks who say that they do this, and this, and sometimes it can be hard to find the right expert. There can be a lot of uncertainty, but a choice I recommend is Michael Peralta with eXp Realty, an excellent communicator and negotiator with a proven track record helping people buy or sell residential real estate. He's definitely a name that you can trust. While things might be a bit strange today, real estate continues to be the best way to create wealth, and mortgage rates are at historic lows. His DRE number is 019-96627. He's the real deal. If this is something that you're interested in, remember he serves the greater Sacramento area of Northern California for residential properties. You can reach out to him via telephone, area code 916-300-7224. Again, area code 916-300-7224. Or, of course, you could reach out to him via email at peraltarealestateservices@gmail.com. That's PERALTA, realestateservices@gmail.com. One long sequence there. But check him out, he's a good guy, the real deal, and he'll certainly do his best to help you out. You're listening to VORW International. One other subject, completely unrelated to any of this stuff. Just interesting. I think regular listeners know I'm not a moviegoer, I'm not a movie person. I don't really watch a lot of movies. That's just the way that I am. So as a result, a lot of classic films, even from the 90s and whatnot, I haven't seen. I've seen very few movies. But that's why it's always interesting to watch some of these things. So one film that I finally got around to watching was the 1998 film The Truman Show. The Jim Carrey movie. And now I knew what the film was about. I knew the plot, pretty much. And I had seen a few clips of it here and there. So I finally decided to, sit down and just watch the whole thing, the whole film, the whole thing. And now I enjoyed it. I thought it was very well done. I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. And I certainly recommend it to anyone who didn't see it already. But the thing that I just disagree with, I don't think, it depends on how you look at it, honestly. They consider this film to be a science fiction comedy drama. But after watching it, I consider it, just analyzing the film, to be a horror movie, honestly. It's scary. It's scary to me, anyway. Obviously it has it's not any sort of, it's not overtly scary. There's no scary scenes or any jump scares or any of that. None of that. But it's just the plot, the premise, the concept, and all of that is horrifying. My goodness, it is. And obviously, just here's a brief synopsis. It doesn't really give anything away, because this is, the whole film. Truman Burbank is the unsuspecting star of The Truman Show, a reality television program broadcast live around the clock worldwide. He has spent his entire life in the seaside town of Sea Haven Island, in reality an enormous set visible from space, situated near Hollywood on Mount Lee, and equipped with state-of-the-art technology to simulate day and night and weather conditions. There are 5,000 cameras to record his every move, and, everyone there is an actor, except for him. And he has no idea that his entire reality is fake. He thinks that this is just his life. He doesn't know that he's on camera. He doesn't know that he's part of a show. He doesn't know that everyone around him is an actor. He doesn't know that everything around him is controlled and directed by people, in a control room, and that it's broadcast to tens of millions of people around the world. That is horrifying. Oh my God, that is just petrifying, honestly. To me, it doesn't get any scarier than that. That the entire world around you is fake, and that everyone around you is a liar, is putting on an act, your every move is watched and analyzed, and life itself is controlled and directed by a group of individuals behind the scenes playing God. So to me, the whole concept is scary. There's a few scenes in the film also that they explain the way the Truman Show makes money is through product placement. And pretty much everything in his world is sponsored by various companies and is available for sale. One touch that was kind of creepy but funny at the same time was, every now and then at random points in the film, they'll blatantly do the product placement. They'll hold up try to recommend them a certain coffee, and they'll say, well, why don't you try, this coffee, specifically brewed, in these mountains and available here. And it's just, they put the product placement right there in your face, and, certainly has a good ending and all that, but it was a good film. I mean, it's inoffensive, nothing wrong with it. It takes place in the late 90s, so of course all the suits and stuff everyone have on in the film are great. Of course I'd wear it all, so it's nice. But it's just the concept, that creeps me out. It's scarier to me than a lot of the overt horror movies. But, when you start thinking about it, there certainly are parallels that you can draw between that movie and the real world, of course. Now, granted, I know that the world around me right now is not one big television set, because in the film, Truman is prevented from ever leaving the island that he's on. Specifically, they instilled aquaphobia in him, so he's terrified of water. And they did that so he could never leave. And he's trapped there, pretty much. And, I know for a fact, of course, I'm not in some big television set, I just traveled myself, no, so I know that. And I know that, the people around me are genuine, no actors or anything. But, outside of that, one parallel you can draw from that film to the real world is, for instance, how much of society is genuine, how much of it is really one form of theatrics or another, right? That's debatable. Obviously, though, there are lots of, there's some fakery in this world, I'll tell you that up front. So number one, how much of what you see day to day is really just a facade, more than you think. But there's nothing we could do about it. And then, obviously a lot of things in this world are manipulated, intentionally by various individuals, in positions of power. And I know there are folks out there, again, who call the shots and are kind of like the one guy in the movie who's like the creator of everything, who do this sort of stuff. And I mean, I could go on and on. I think sometimes it's just tough to explain this stuff without sounding like you've gone off the deep end or whatever. But I think what creeped me out about it is, number one, just the concept in general. But secondly, the fact that you could draw parallels, legitimate parallels, between the film and the world we live in, the real world. So I think that's why that hit home there. But if you haven't given it a watch, I recommend it. It's not too long of a film. It was like an hour and 40 minutes long. So, it's something you could just watch in an evening at some point. But, yeah, the 90s. The 90s was a good decade for film, in my opinion. Lots of good movies came out in that decade. Surprisingly few which I've seen, though that goes for any decade. I really am not a movie person, but as a result, then, when I finally go ahead and see it, usually I'm prompted to, one reason or another. And then I'm really just able to fully, hopefully get the most out of it. So with that, I think those are all the tangents and, ramblings, probably incoherent. It's probably all totally incoherent. Honestly, it's like, I don't know why people even listen to this. What does someone get out of tuning in for 2 hours of this? Probably an hour and a half, however long this is. I don't know. I enjoy recording them, but how can someone enjoy listening to this? I don't understand it. Who knows? I'm amazed that this show is even... I don't know how people listen to it. I really don't. But it's a pleasure to have even one person tuned in, because your dedication is truly admirable, and I don't even say that as a joke. I don't. I say that 100% serious. Your dedication is truly admirable, because the fact that folks put up with this, I know, this meandering discussion, this, raving stuff about shortwave and broadcasting and movies and current events and stuff. I don't know how you do it, but to those of you who listen, no matter why it is that you listen, whether you tune in to go to sleep, or if you listen intently, or if you just kind of leave this show on in the background while you go about your business, or whatever, I don't really care why anyone listens, but just the fact that someone does really means a lot to me, and I hope you know that. If 0 people listened to this, I wouldn't spend the time at a microphone. I wouldn't do this. So it's folks like you that, even if you're hearing this right now, and you're listening, thank you, a huge thank you to you. Because just know, simply by your act of listening, you're keeping this show going. So I hope you know how much I appreciate it, and appreciate you as a listener, as an individual. You all are a fantastic audience. To tell you the truth, probably the best audience I've ever had. So thank you for being a listener to this show. Coming up next is a segment of this broadcast that I like to call the Mailbag Show, where we read and respond to listener correspondence. This part of the show is completely random. I'm just going to open up my email, see what there is, and we'll read what we read. If you'd like to participate in this, and it's always a pleasure to hear from you, you can write in to VORWINFO@gmail.com. Again, that's VORWINFO@gmail.com. Any questions, any comments, any pieces of feedback, any correspondence, could be totally miscellaneous in nature. Anything that you have to share or discuss, doesn't bother me, is welcome. You can talk about your day, you can talk about something interesting you read, something you saw in the news, a movie you watched, anything. Any questions, any topic suggestions, anything you want to discuss is more than welcome. VORWINFO@gmail.com. Again, VORWINFO@gmail.com. If you would be interested in creating and submitting a piece of fan art, you can make it any style that you want. It's up to you. Just go to town, any piece you want. But if you want to make a piece of fan art, all I ask is that you submit it via email to VORWINFO@gmail.com. Send it as an attachment to the email, or if you would like to upload it to a third-party image hosting site, then you could certainly do that. And from there, I'll download it. All I ask is that you let me know how you want to be credited. It could just be by name, but if there's like an Instagram profile you want to link, a social media account, a website that you have your work on, or whatever, let me know how you want to be credited, because of course you deserve it for making a piece of fan art, so people know who you are, where to find more if that's what you'd like. So that's all that I ask. Alright, with that, let us break open the mailbag. Let's see what there is to read and discuss. Alright, and our first email of the show comes in from Adam, who writes, "Hey, Review Bra. These past few weeks I've been having paranoid thoughts, mainly of spiders crawling on me while I sleep, as well as demons and or spirits barging in and terrorizing me, although the latter is less common. I have been wondering if these thoughts are common amongst people, or if it's just been me. Have you had these sort of thoughts in the past, and if so, how have you dealt with them? Apologies if topics like these are too heavy for the podcast, from Adam. Well, thank you, Adam, for corresponding. Now, in terms of the prevalence of such thoughts, that is debatable. There are lots of people that never really think such things, but there are folks who do. And, here's the problem. Sometimes people will discriminate against you, especially with paranoia. They'll say, oh, it's stupid, there's no, they don't understand, they don't get it. I can say, just from experience, I have had those thoughts, and I still do. Yes, it's just something that I don't dwell on very often, but my mind is a combination of anxiety, but mixed in with that anxiety is a whole ton of paranoia. And it's one of those things, because you can talk about anxiety, that's something that a lot of people just can relate to. You can even talk about depression. A lot of people have felt down here and there. But when you start getting onto paranoia, that's where you start to lose some people. Because people can relate and understand if you say, well, I am, I have fears of, let's say, going into a crowded restaurant or something because of all the people looking at you. Right, social anxiety, etc. But if you say, well, like in my instance, I look outside and I see a car sitting, on the street, a part of my mind instinctively fears the worst and wonders, well, what is it? Is it someone stalking me? Could it be someone monitoring me? Is it just a car? Etc., etc. And, I've had all these sorts of things. It's one of the reasons why I really don't go out very much, because I'm not very trusting of the outside world. So yeah, such things are daily life. How do I deal with it, though, because I still just live my life? I try to just ignore it. I try to understand. I guess I've gotten so used to it, I kind of catalog certain things in my mind. And if you remember in the last show, remember what I was saying, and it might have not even been in the last show, it might have been in the one before that, but there was a segment where I was talking about practicalities and worrying about everything. And I was discussing, there was a train in the distance, and I think you could hear the train horn, and I was saying, well, look at it this way, what? Is it more likely that it's just a train, or that, is it a train full of, highly trained Navy SEALs that are coming up to assassinate me or something, right? What makes more sense? What's the more logical thing? So I just always call it the what-ifs, I'll look out at something, I'll think to myself, well, what if it's this? What if it's that? Constantly. But it's like it's going on in the background, and I just catalog, and more often than not, I just ignore it. And I say, all right, well, this guy in front is just a worker. He's just, you could see the decals on the truck. You could see that he's got an orange vest on. You can see that he's got a ladder. Well, is it someone disguised as a worker, or is it just a regular worker, right? And it's usually the latter. And I think some people might say, well, I don't think there's really any reason to look at the world this way. There's some truth to it, but, personal experiences have kind of reinforced these tendencies, and we all know that the world, in and of itself is a twisted place. I say that, better to keep your guard up than not. But it's all about managing it, and then does it get in the way of the quality of life? For instance, most of my worries just involve people, and organizations, and all of that stuff. Not really the paranormal or the supernatural. So if it gets to the point where you can't manage it anymore, and you're losing sleep, you're missing work or school or going anywhere, because let's say you're worried about demons and it is having a definitive negative impact on your quality of life, I would recommend, and don't take this the wrong way, I would recommend seeing a psychiatrist. Sometimes these fears and, the paranoia can be legitimate, sometimes it isn't. I get paranoid about insects too, the other day I saw a centipede, and now what do I always do whenever I go into a room? I kind of scan the walls real quick, I always look and see, because, look, those things are creepy. And of course, you don't want to have one of those things fall on you when you fall asleep. So I get it. I'm there with you. It just depends all about balance. Can you manage it effectively? If you can't, is it getting the best of you? Is it driving you crazy? Is it getting in the way of your life? You can go to a psychiatrist and they can give you some things that could certainly calm you down and help out. That's up to you. But I will say, everything has its benefits and its drawbacks. And they would know best. I mean, for instance, right, you want to talk about different things. Benzodiazepines, of course, can relax you, can calm you down a bit. I think those work very good in the immediate, but you can build up a tolerance pretty quickly, and they are habit forming. And addiction to those things, the withdrawal is a living hell, believe me, it's tough. But that's just something they don't tell you. But those do work. SSRIs, though, are very different from person to person. And sometimes they can make you better, sometimes they can make you worse. Sometimes you gotta switch from one to the next. Similarly to SSRIs, antipsychotics are very similar. A lot of the side effects on those can be iffy, and again, some work better than others. Some mess you up more than they help, but others do a good job. So that's the thing, it all depends. And everyone's different. Like me personally, I manage everything on my own without any prescription drugs. I've tried them in the past, and it's just not for me. And having been there, I just feel like I'm better handling it, by myself. But there's nothing wrong with kind of, if it gets in the way of things, getting that extra help. There's nothing wrong with it. No shame in doing that, and it's purely your decision. It's a case-by-case basis, and I just wish you the best of luck. Believe me, as I said, I've been there, and I wish you the best of luck. This next email is actually for the Shortwave broadcast, but I just thought it would be interesting to share on this show, at least an excerpt of it. It comes in from Ronnie, who writes, "I've been having a lot of negative, intrusive thoughts lately, and want to share a technique I've been using to get them out of my head. I close my eyes, and in my head, I capture the thought or scenario in a bubble. As I breathe in, the bubble expands, and when I breathe out, I visualize the thought bubble exiting through my mouth. It seems that deeper-rooted, fearful thoughts get stuck halfway out. When this happens, I repeat the process but use a more forceful breath and open my mouth wider until it's out. After it is out, I open my eyes and name a few different objects around me to make sure I'm re-grounded in reality. Now maybe this sounds crazy, but it's been working like magic for me. Another thing to note, any intrusive thoughts that pop up repeatedly, I take a deeper look at in meditation. They're usually tied to a past trauma, just in a different presentation. Feel free to share this information if you deem it useful. Well, thank you, Ronnie. And, here's the way that I look at this stuff. A lot of folks are very judgmental individuals. And they'll say, it sounds this way, it sounds that way, it obviously can't work. Clearly it works for you. And if it's having a positive effect, my goodness, keep doing what you're doing, because it's something that works. And sometimes you have these thought exercises, these things you can do these types of meditation, relaxation techniques, etc., that when you first imagine it, or you first hear of it, you think, oh, there's no way this can work. Then you finally decide to try it. And it works. It really does. I have different techniques myself that, and I'll have to try this one just for the sake of doing so. I'll give it a shot. I know that intrusive thoughts are the worst. You just want them to go away. And I was thinking, one thing that I think more people were perhaps receptive to, one capacity or another, there's all different types of meditation, but I wish people were more receptive to meditation. I think one of the issues is that meditation, in my opinion anyway, requires patience and an open mind. Unfortunately, the way this world is, primarily society, I'm not saying everyone is this way, but we're so used to everything being so fast and immediate. We're in an instant gratification culture. We want everything to happen our way, and we want it to happen now. And if it doesn't, we're fed up, it obviously doesn't work, etc. I think for meditation to be effective, you can't have that mindset. You can't really go into it, with a sense of being insincere and just saying, I want results, and expecting to sit there and just let it do the work for you. I think you will need some patience. You will need some discipline. You will need to have an open mind. Don't expect results, just let it happen, whatever that might be. That's my view. That's how I try to look whenever I try to do little meditative exercises. I say, look, I'm not going into this to expect, 30 minutes later to be a different person or to have these issues go away. But whatever happens, happens. And at the very least, I might be a bit calmer and relaxed than when I went into it. And it works. I think the problem is that meditation, again, I think it is effective. It's not a cure-all, but it could certainly help the mind in some capacity. Unfortunately, the entire practice of meditation, I think, directly clashes with a lot of how this world is. Because again, you go into it, you want quick results, you're not going to get it. And then, it's going to be a waste of time, and you're going to sit there and it'll be, what's the point of this? Well, there really isn't any. It's all, I think, the mindset going into it as well. Just try to be open-minded and let it take its course, whatever that may be. So thank you, Ronnie, for your email. Jack, in Manchester, England, he just said, I just want to say you're a huge inspiration for me to start my own YouTube channel. Goes by the name The Snackhead Cowboy. I've been uploading content since 2019. I currently have 95 subs, so this year I'm hoping to get 150. Wanted to ask, do you ever keep an eye on the fast food releases we get here in the UK? I recently reviewed the new Katsu Curry McNuggets, and they were great. So Jack in Manchester. Thank you, Jack. I can't say keep up to date completely, but I do keep track of them here and there, and I have heard of those nuggets, and they sounded really interesting. So, thank you for writing in. I wish you the very best of luck, by the way, with your channel. My best advice for you is to just keep doing what you enjoy doing. Upload regularly, maybe keep it at a schedule or whatnot, and just keep, put your best foot forward, keep on keeping on, and as long as you enjoy what you're doing, that's the most important thing about it. When I started my YouTube channel, I started it in 2011. I made videos every single week, that's why it was the report of the week, because it was a weekly thing. And I did videos every single week up until early 2013, and in that span of 2 years, I only had 200 subscribers, and that was it. but that didn't stop me from doing what I liked doing. I enjoyed the videos, I had a lot of fun with it, and that's what matters in the end. So as long as you enjoy doing the reviews, put your best foot forward, just keep uploading regularly, interact with your community, and I think you'll have that 150 subscribers in no time. So best of luck to you, my friend. Next email comes in from Andrew in Tampa, Florida, listener since 2018. I was wondering if you knew of a virtual reality game called VR Chat. No, I haven't. I haven't, so you continue. Recently on New Year's, the player count has peaked to the highest it's ever been, with about 60,000 players. The community on this social game has been growing fast ever since the pandemic started. Since people are social beings, VR Chat was one way to meet new friends and have a taste of social interaction without going outside or leaving your own room. You can either play the game on desktop mode with a mouse and keyboard, or you could enhance your social experience by putting on a virtual reality headset with hand controllers. You can have an even better experience with devices on your hip and feet to track motion on those areas. People have even gone as far as pretty much living in this game because they spend so much time on it. I was wondering what your thoughts are on virtual reality/augmented reality and the future of socializing in such realms. Well, Andrew, you're probably not going to like this. Number one, if someone wants to play VR Chat, go ahead. By all means, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Since I just answered this in the last show that I did, I recommend just taking a look at that. And I think it will be, it'll be said far more concisely and eloquently than I can say it right now. I am not a fan. Here's my fear. My fear is just that VR and virtual reality, augmented reality, etc., it's going to go so far that eventually we create this perfect reality in, this realm, and we neglect the world around us as a result. And we live in this dystopian nightmare where we've sold our souls out to this fake paradise. Let the real world just completely fall apart. And then, what happens if the VR reality, I don't know, what if it's exploited? What if it's used for control? I don't know. So, I think VR and stuff is going to be the future, whether I like it or not, and I'm just going to have to be dragged into it kicking and screaming. But hopefully that future, personally, I hope it's a ways away. It'll happen when it happens, but if it does, hopefully these fears won't be realized, and hopefully it'll be better than what I think about it. So we'll see. Very interesting either way. I'm not surprised, with the lockdowns and stuff, why this has become so popular. It makes perfect sense to me. This listener goes by the name Soup, who says, if you haven't spoke with your primary care physician or a dietitian, you may want to. I've had dental trauma issues, and it took work to get my body used to absorption again. Chugging Ensure a couple times a week anyway. So thank you for your concern, Soup. And I think I'm doing all right. If something's horribly wrong with me, then something's horribly wrong with me. But no, thank you for your care, though. I'm still here. I'm still doing all right. All right, next email comes in from Kath, who says, San Francisco loves you. Hey, when I was in college, we used to get Taco Light at Taco Bell. They were awesome. They won't make them anymore because they were more calories. I make my own now with soft tacos in oil on the stove and then add my fixings. Next time you're there, maybe suggest. We love you. I seriously would have voted for you. My best Christmas gifts were your mug and t-shirt, which I'm wearing right now. So thank you very much, Kath. Thank you for your kind words, and for mentioning the Taco Light at Taco Bell. I looked that up, and that definitely was a thing. They had it. Curious when they had it until. So this was mostly during the 80s, but maybe they still had it in the 90s, I'm not sure. Very interesting, though. Yeah, and how they said, you were right on the money there, that a lot of people thought that it was almost like a diet taco type of thing, because because I think it was spelled Taco Light or Light, L-I-T-E. I think the spellings were interchangeable. So, really interesting, though, that a lot of people, of course, had the impression that this was something for, folks who might be a little more health conscious, when really it was the exact opposite. They said it was actually extremely high in calories. So, it really, it kind of waned in popularity rather quickly, I suppose, at that revelation. So really interesting. Thank you for your kind words. Alright, so I've taken a short break from recording. For some reason, and I think this is just, I don't know, maybe it's just the acoustics or something, maybe it's just me. I feel like I have, I don't know, my voice sounds weird, but then I re-listened to the tape like 5 or 6 times, and I don't hear what I think I hear, so I don't know, I don't think it's a big deal. But I apologize if there really is some sort of issue with my voice right now. Just doesn't sound right, somehow. But I don't know. Nothing I can do about it. I tried, clearing my throat and drinking down lots of water. I don't know. I think it's okay in the end. But, well, let's continue on. We have an email coming in from Daniel in Ancaster, Ontario, Canada. I'm a big fan of the show, and I've been watching for about a year now. I really like the shows about cryptids and the supernatural. I was wondering how you would prepare, or what you would do if aliens showed up. Do you think it's likely that they would show up anytime soon? And if so, would it even surprise you with the way 2020 went, and how 2021 is going so far? Keep up the great work. Your shows are always something I look forward to. So thank you, Daniel. Well, aliens, to me, alright, and this is just my 2 cents, but I don't think there is necessarily anything that I could do to prepare for aliens. Because here's the thing, right, that we all need to consider in regards to extraterrestrial life, should they wish to visit Earth. What are their intentions? Well, we don't know. So therefore, how can you necessarily prepare for something that you don't really even know what to expect? So in the end, to me, there is no way to prepare in any way, shape, or form if aliens were to show up. And I would assume that if aliens were to show up, providing they had the technology to visit Earth, nothing that I would do to prepare would even matter at this point. I think it's the epitome of a situation that you say, well, it's out of my hands. Because it really is. There's nothing that you can do to better yourself when we don't even know what their intentions would be. So, in that regard, I'm just kind of resigned to fate. And it's like, well, if they are benevolent, that's great. And if they offer peace and goodwill and, whatever, that's fantastic. And if they are here to destroy us, well, then that's what they're going to do, and they're probably going to succeed at it. There might be different types of aliens. There might be good aliens that really do want to be harmonious with other species and groups, you name it. But there might be others that just kind of want to destroy everything and are more sick than anything we could ever conjure up in terms of their actions. So, it's just to try to gauge, well, how exactly would they react to humanity? You don't know until they do. So, in my instance, my philosophy toward aliens and alien visitations, if they ever were to show up, is pretty much whatever happens, happens. Because nothing I can do about it, will change or do anything. Do I think that they'll show up anytime soon? I highly doubt it. I don't think so. I think if extraterrestrials are aware of Earth, they're kind of just doing a wait-and-see type of observation, as opposed to any sort of grandiose, there they are coming in, and and so forth. It's more along the lines of observations, if they really are out there and they're aware of us. And granted, Earth is really making an awful lot of noise in terms of all of our communications, so who's to say? But, that's just my view. I remember there was this one guy, I don't know, was he Israeli? He was saying that the aliens communicated with Earth and they have some sort of a galactic council and this and that and the other thing. I don't think that's real, but I think it's interesting either way. We have an email coming in from Uriah who says, "This is my first time writing into the show. I just wanted to ask for your thoughts on a topic that is getting a lot of press at the time I'm writing this. What are your thoughts on increasing the minimum wage in the United States to $15 an hour? There is some speculation that it might increase the price of fast food and other commodities, which I know would affect you directly. Now, thank you for your question. Minimum wage is an issue that's controversial. And let's be real, you can have one opinion or another, and it's going to anger people. And it's going to, not having an opinion is going to anger people too. Really just existing and not, doing anything, or people are going to be angry at you one way or another, so what does it matter? Minimum wage is one of those issues. Here's the problem. It's not the minimum wage that's an issue in terms of increasing it. It's the things that the powers that be are going to do that are going to cause more problems than the money itself. Right? If everything went as intended, raising the minimum wage is, by all means, go ahead with it. And it's not going to cause any problems. People that work very, very hard day to day, even a lot of minimum wage work can be backbreaking in some cases. It really depends on the job, but certainly there are lots of folks out there that put a lot of time and effort into what they do and should be compensated more for it financially. Absolutely, this is a difficult economy right now for average people. Let's forget about Wall Street. So, in that regard, let's just say, yes, people do need to be paid more, especially for some of the things that they do. If that's all that there was to it, a lot of the arguments that arise wouldn't even exist. It should be a no-brainer. Okay, fine. Here's the problem. I think the powers that be, they want people to stay in the positions that they're in. They want you to be trapped. They want you to be where you are. Remember this about money. Money is a multifaceted resource. It can be used for a wide variety of reasons. It can be used for the point of entertainment. It can be used to obtain necessities. It can be used for survival. It can be used to advance one's status and position in the world. And it could be used as a means of control to keep other people in low positions. And it's actively used in that regard worldwide, to pretty much every single person. Money is used as a means of control. And we just accept this as life, right? There's nothing you can do about it. But, and I just think, and I know people will disagree with me on this, that's fine. I think that, again, some powers that be don't want people to have more money. So when the minimum wage gets adjusted, and increased hopefully, two things happen with it that go hand in hand. Number one, the prices of things go up just a little bit. Not really by a ton, but they go up a little bit. And number two, a number of minimum wage positions seem to suddenly disappear. And all of a sudden, this technological innovation that we've been talking about and expecting for years and years, all of a sudden just happens to materialize. Oh, just now, isn't the timing ever so convenient? That, look at this. The technology developed that I guess these jobs that previously paid the minimum wage aren't necessary anymore. Like how, with the fast food restaurants, all the touch screens, instead of having cashiers, started popping up everywhere. You think that was really done to try to make things a bit easier? Or was it done just so that they can do away with a couple extra workers, a few less people to pay, right? So unfortunately, when the minimum wage gets increased, and I think it likely will be, I think it'll be increased to probably $15 an hour, or at least, I think there will be an increase one way or another. The sad thing about it, though, it'll be like nothing ever changed. Now, there will be folks who will be helped out genuinely by increasing the minimum wage, but unfortunately, I just don't think some of the people in charge really want to get people out of poverty. Because, mind you, poverty is a means of control. So, in the end, I think it'll be raised, but I just wouldn't expect unfortunately, a lot of good to come of it, because you'll see these adjustments get made to offset that, and they do this on purpose. So when you see that, just know that it's being done on purpose, and you know why. So yes, I'm sure the prices of fast food will go up. The prices of everything will go up a little bit. Again, not a ton, but a little bit. But also at these fast food restaurants, there's going to be a few less workers there. Next question comes in from a listener in Malaysia. Hi, Review Bra. Have you been approached by old friends/strangers asking you to join a multi-level marketing? If you haven't, what are your thoughts on it? Should it disappear because it closely resembles a pyramid scheme? Now, I've never been approached by any old friends, because really I don't really have any old friends, but now I've gotten plenty of emails from people who I'm sure try to get me into these things, but I never respond to them. I just always delete them immediately. And it's just not something that I would ever do, that I would ever be interested in. Multi-level marketing, not all of it, and I'm not very familiar with it, this is just my basic understanding. They aren't all scams, and they aren't all illegitimate, but it's pretty close to being the case. I mean, most people that ever even participate in multi-level marketing barely make anything. It helps the folks at the top, it never trickles down, and again, in some cases, it's just an outright complete pyramid scheme, and it's just not something that I really have a favorable view on. So I've never been approached by anyone personally, to join multi-level marketing, but, I get these emails that say they have a business offer, and it's just, it's just shady, it's just shady stuff. I always get a bad feeling about it. I just delete it on site. I'm sure I've been approached by a lot of them because unfortunately they see the numbers. Here's the other thing, mind you. They look at this and they look at, let's say, the channel. They think, look at these suckers that we can get. You know? That's how they think of people. No, it's just not right. It's just not right. Though I've never been approached again personally, my answer is always the same. 2 letters. A big capital N-O. Big no. We have Anders checking in. Hello from Illinois. John, or Report of the Week, what do you prefer to be called? You can call me anything you want. You can call me John. You can call me Review Bra. You can call me Host. You can call me Lecturer. You can call me Report of the Week. Anything. I don't really care. The email, I wanted to write to you today. Here we go. I wanted to write to you today because I wanted to know what you think about the public school system and if you would change anything. Thank you and good day. Well, thank you very much for your email. Well, here's the thing again. These are subjects that I'm not all that versed on, but of course it needs adjustment. The curriculum needs to change. The quality of the education needs to change. Some of the schools need different technology. Teacher salaries need to change. The class sizes need to change. And then it's a case-by-case basis. You know, you have schools in different areas that have different needs, different student bodies. I mean, you name it. It's just so... There's no one answer for it, but the whole thing needs reform. The whole thing needs to change. Because unfortunately, you know, with public school, your mileage may vary, right? Where are you? What school are you going to? What's the quality of the education like there? Unfortunately, it's not a uniform answer. Some are better than others. It's a shame. And education, it's such an important, precious thing. And the fact that it's sometimes of such poor quality, it's to our detriment. You know? Sometimes, again, I wonder, is that being done on purpose? I have no ways to ever prove that. That's just a suspicion. You know, kind of like the minimum wage thing. Sometimes they get conspiratorial, but sometimes I wonder, you know, is that what they want? Do they want the education to be lacking in certain cases on purpose? I don't know. You know, isn't it just sad, though? You've got the technology in some ways advancing as it is. This beautiful encyclopedia, the internet, available at our disposal, and in some ways it's just squandered completely. You'd think, with all of this information at our fingertips, the world would be the smartest it's ever been. And I think some people would be shocked if they could see how it is today, you know, that it's not. Now, I'm not saying that public schools are the worst thing ever. You know, I went to public school, and I feel like my experience was sufficient. But just because you have to look at it this way, just because you had a good experience doesn't mean that the entire system is good. You know, I was reading something the other day, I think 2 days ago. You know, documents from a teacher that works in a public school. And his experience was completely different. I mean, with just the state of things. So that's why I say your mileage may vary. Definitely needs some reform. And one thing that I wish, certainly, is that I wish that the school system did more about bullying. You have such degenerate behavior nowadays, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better, and it doesn't seem like there's any consequences to your actions. Now, in the world, well, do actions have consequences? I don't know. Sometimes, you know, it feels like in school, especially very young, you know, when you're real young, I'm talking elementary school and preschool in the very early days, they try to instill, you know, to be a good person and that you have to follow the rules or you're going to be in trouble. and to treat each other well, to treat each other respectfully, etc. But, alright, if you're a tiny little kid and you break those rules, then there may be punishment, from the school system or whatever. But then, even as you start getting older, this message seems to falter. And by the time, you're in middle school or high school, and let's say a student is just a complete bully, they treat everyone just with no respect, they actively go out and hurt others, cyberbullying, you name it, just dreadful social media posts, they really do a lot of mental harm, if not physical harm, to some of their peers, and the school does nothing about it. It's like they don't care. They excuse these behaviors, they let them get away with it, but then, you look at the world. After you get out of school, yeah, there's a legal system. That's true. I mean, the average person can't go out and, just kill someone on the street. Usually get away with it. Actions like that will have consequences. It's that sort of stuff, isn't really tolerated. But then I wonder, what about the people really, up at the top of the social ladder? Sometimes I feel like they can go out and do that stuff and get away with it time and again. It's like they get a free pass at everything. And of course, if you just want to talk about degenerated behaviors, if you treat people like trash, and you step on them, and you are as disrespectful as possible, and you're cruel, you're insensitive, you're emotionless, and you're completely selfish, and all you do is step on other people, do you get a slap on the wrist for that? Do you have any sort of repercussion? No, you get rewarded by society. You're praised, you're promoted, you're rewarded, and people want to be you. So those behaviors are rewarded in this world. Psychopathy is a desired trait by a lot. I think that right there should tell you how messed up of a world this is and how far gone we are. But back to the subject of schools, I remember I saw, when I was in high school, some truly abhorrent behaviors. Things that are inexcusable. Completely inexcusable. I'm talking sexual stuff, mind you. Things that I think especially today could be considered, in some cases, at least at a very, very minimum, sexual harassment. Possibly as far as, a degree of sexual assault. Was anything done about it? No. Did teachers and administrators know about it? Yes. Did they do anything about it? No. That's the problem right there. Forgetting even about the state of the world beyond school. School is a time where lots of kids are in, their formative years. And events that happen there can really leave a lasting impact on life. In the world, pretty much anything goes. Unless it's extremely serious. But school, I think, is one of the few opportunities, perhaps, to even try to instill a sense of morality and a sense of just trying to be a righteous individual. And show that actions have consequences, good or bad. And the fact when you see such things happen and no one does anything about it, and they just let this stuff happen, very bad. It's very, very, very bad. Forgetting even about curriculum and all of that stuff, that's something that needs to change ASAP. Bullying and all of the perversion in that realm They shouldn't just, let it slide, put it under the rug. That needs to change. That'd be the first thing I would change. And then start working on everything else after that. It's just, what can you do? What can you do? I know I said it earlier in the show. I know that this one is kind of negative, this broadcast. But, I've talked about this before. I'm not one of those people that is unnaturally positive. I think there's something kind of creepy about that, to be like perpetually smiley 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You have your good days, your bad days. Some days you're in a better frame of mind than others, but I think like the people who just say, oh, just don't think about that, just smile. I don't know, I've just never been one of those people. And I had a few complaints the last show, and I'm sure I will again this time around. They say, well, you're too negative. I don't want to listen to that. I want to hear some positivity. But I've said this in the past, and I say it because I mean it. I sincerely mean it. I try to balance things out. I try to, have a mix of emotions. Sometimes, it's really the luck of the draw. Some shows will be more positive than others. But I've expressed that. I'm just not going to, kind of take a coat hanger and shove it in my mouth and force a smile, because that's what you're supposed to do. So I know that some shows are going to be more down in the dumps than others. I figure this is one of those shows. But in the end, this is my broadcast, and I'll conduct it as I wish. It's just I don't believe in forcing emotions. It's creepy and robotic. But there will be more. There will be shows more positive down the line, I'm sure. You need to have a balance. You can't look at everything with a smile on your face. You're not going to get the full picture or the truth about how this world really is. Sometimes I think, not always, but sometimes some negativity can be eye-opening, in a sense. You just can't let that completely consume you. So that's why, I always talk about balance, because it's true. You need some good and some bad. It can't just be one or the other. You can't be totally jaded, but you just can't be living, in another world either. Yeah, just like this email. See, this is true. I know this is how a lot of people might be feeling. But this kind of took the words right out of my mouth. Mike in Phoenix, Arizona writes, in regards to the predictions show, thanks for sharing everyone's prediction. I've got to say it was a bit depressing to hear all the negativity. However, I do feel that it's best to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Right? And see, that's an honest view, Yeah, I know these shows can sometimes, I'm sure to some, be a bit down, be a bit of a downer. But that's how I try to look at things, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. But anyway, continuing on with this email, my question for you is, what's the most beneficial way for me to listen to the podcast in terms of your success both listener-wise and monetarily? I normally listen on YouTube, but did so via a podcast app for the predictions show. I want to ensure I listen the most beneficial to you way. The only way that this show is ever even benefited monetarily is through YouTube listens and YouTube only. And that's it. I do not make a single cent off of any other platforms. Like if you tune in on any other platform, and I know I'm on a lot. I know I'm on, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or whatever they call it these days, Google Music or something like that. I don't know. I know there's another name for it. Stitcher, Pocket Casts, TuneIn, Amazon Podcasts, iHeartRadio. If you tune in on the Shortwave, if you tune in on AM radio, I make $0 and 0 cents from any play. 100,000 people could listen on any of those platforms, but there is no monetization on any of them. On YouTube, there's a little bit of monetization, but not a lot. A lot of content on the podcast channel, because I talk about the dreaded non-advertiser friendly current events, and all of that stuff. They either get demonetized or the ad rate is very low. Financially speaking, this is not a profitable show at all. I'm very lucky to break even. That's why I've kind of started, thankfully, with these sponsors that help the show. It kind of helps it to break even a bit. But this is not a for-profit broadcast, because there's no profit to be made. So I don't do this show to make money. I never have. There's no money to be made. I do this show because I like doing it. And I enjoy getting at the microphone here and just sharing my thoughts. Same thing with the shortwave broadcasts. I think in all of the years I've been doing this, I don't think it's ever once operated at a profit. A lot of the time it just breaks even, month to month, and that's it. But this is not my bread and butter. I put so much time to this because I like doing it. I like sharing my thoughts, and you guys are a fantastic audience. But really there's just no such monetary gain. So if you do listen to the broadcast, again, theoretically, the best way would then be via YouTube, but even then, the impact of that is kind of debatable. Plus, I know now, the YouTube broadcasts, I just have to self-censor them, so you're not really getting the full show. I mean, in the end, just go with whatever platform you really want to go with. The best way I would say otherwise to support this show, just mind you that, number one, the advertisers who do advertise on it, I'm not saying like the regular ads, again, if something is monetized, but at the beginning of the show, the ads that I kind of voice over, they are a big help. So if any of their services interest you, certainly consider giving them your patronage. And otherwise, if anyone is feeling generous, of course, donations via PayPal to VORWINFO@gmail.com are appreciated, or via Patreon at patreon.com/thereportoftheweek. But that's it. This show isn't a cash cow. It's just something that I do because I like doing it. And that's all that there is to it. That's just one thing in regards to radio or podcasts. There's an old saying in terms of radio. They say radio never makes any money. And it's true. Just if you want to get into radio and do a podcast or a radio show, do it because you want to do it. Because financial motivation is non-existent. So it's a good medium if it's something you're passionate about, which I am. I love doing the audio work, so that's why that doesn't bother me. That's why it's all the time and effort I put into doing this. Again, like we were talking about with money, a lot of people I think are conditioned that money is literally everything. Now, in this world of ours, yes, money is important, and a lot of us can't survive without it, of course. Right? You need it to survive. You have to pay rent, pay bills, buy food, necessities, etc., right? That's just the way the world works. But they act like money is literally everything. Now, money is important does not equal money is literally everything. But, you got some people out there that act that way. Like, they would look at me right now, they would say, well, there's no money to be made here, so why? Why are you doing this? And I would just say, well, because this is what I like doing. And then they'll revert back to saying, but there's no money to be made here. And you're in an endless loop. You say, but that's what I like to do. But there's no money. But I like doing it, but there's no money. And it never ends. So, you just have to, it just comes down to, I guess, some common sense stuff. But no, this show is great. It's wonderful to do, and you guys make it so wonderful. I know I can be a downer sometimes, and it's just the way of the world. I guess it just kind of has me in a negative state of mind lately. It'll get better eventually. You can't really force it to get better. It just will. I know it will. My mindset. But thank you all for not only your participation, but your listenership, for putting up with me here. And I think, that's why I do this show, because of just all the wonderful folks out there that listen in. It's always a pleasure to get here and be at the microphone for a couple hours and do this. Derek writes in, just says, you're one of the few people I think of that may have some suggestions on this, and if you don't, that's okay too. I would like to find a little radio transmitter that's only strong enough for my home. Trying to jump from one Bluetooth device to another is super annoying, and I think I would rather just have a couple nice little radios in a couple different rooms to listen to. Radios I technically already own, so no huge investment in something like Sonos. I've done some research on and off, but it all just seems like a gray area on what I'm even allowed to use, if anything at all. If you've done a show on this topic already, I'd love to listen to it. So Derek, the good news, I do have an answer for you, and I think you will be happy to know that if you want to have a small transmitter only for your house, just for radios, in your house, and you could air anything you want, that is perfectly 100% legal. You can do this. There is a certain rule that the FCC has called Part 15. Alright, Part 15, Part 1.5, and it's for that purpose exactly. A Part 15 device is allowed by the FCC. It's an unlicensed device that may emit low-powered radio signals on frequencies used by a licensed service. And you can legally get away with it. So, you can have, for instance, an FM transmitter or an AM transmitter that is Part 15. Now, it will transmit with such a low power. So low, as a matter of fact, that it's crazy. It's less than 1 watt. So it is an extremely low power transmitter, and it's exactly like what you're looking for. The range of the Part 15 transmitter is usually just, pretty much your house. And that's it. So that's why it is perfectly functional and legal and allowed, for that reason exactly. So, Derek, just look up Part 15 transmitter. They sell them. There's plenty of retailers that do. You can take your pick, AM or FM. And, you could program it, you could air anything you want. You are also, of course, not forced to abide by the guidelines of the FCC either, so don't worry about profane programs or anything. It's just going to be for an audience of one, you. So air anything you want, and Part 15 in that regard is the way to go. So, yes, you're allowed to do that. It's perfectly legal, and don't worry about that at all. So, that's all that there is to it. Just again, so you don't run into any trouble with the FCC, just try to get the transmitter from a reputable dealer and make sure that it mentions Part 15. Because even certain FM transmitters can be low power, but they can go much further than you think. So, if you're on eBay and you see a transmitter that says, for FM, and it's, let's say, a 50-watt FM transmitter, and let's say you're not very familiar with power levels, so you think, 50 watts, that's not much, it's what a light bulb in some cases has more power than that, so, 50 watts isn't much, I think that should just be enough to cover the house. You would be mistaken. You would set up a 50-watt FM transmitter, and all of a sudden, the coverage of it is much further than you think. It covers, a couple miles at least, probably more. And now you're operating an illegal pirate station. Now, in terms of pirate radio, I'm not against it. I actually support pirate radio. But you have to be responsible with it, Don't interfere with anyone. Get a good quality transmitter that doesn't interfere with any other stations or frequency ranges. So just have a clean signal. Don't bother anyone else. Don't get in the way of things. And, that's all. If you're gonna do a pirate station, just be responsible. Don't interfere with anyone or anything else. That's where I draw the line. Like, sometimes you have these pirate FM transmitters that are made very, very poorly, so the signal kind of splatters on other frequency ranges and causes interference. And unfortunately, right above the FM band is the aircraft band that lots of airports and commercial and private airplanes use. So sometimes you'll get these pirate FM stations that have these cheap transmitters that their station interferes with the frequencies for airports. If that's the case, then I think the FCC should mercilessly go against them because they're causing issues, right? They're literally causing detriment of very important services. The good news, though, again, is that if you get a Part 15 transmitter, that, again, is very, very low power. It's under 1 watt. I mean, it's like 0.0015 watts or something. It's so low that it won't cause any interference to any of these services, so don't even worry about it. So it's a really good service. It's very useful, and it's used especially these days by lots of churches. Especially early on in the pandemic, right, when there were either strict occupancy limits to churches, or if they were shut down completely, what a lot of churches would actually do is they would get a Part 15 transmitter that would be, just strong enough to, cover, let's say, the church parking lot, and have the congregation gather there, and then, the minister would pretty much say, all right, tune to, 99.3 FM on your car radio, and broadcast, the sermon over that. And that's a legal way to do it. So I know, in many of those cases, Part 15 transmitters were used extensively, especially as the coronavirus was shutting everything down. Part 15 is also used in some cases by some smaller school and college radio stations. It's used by some realtors. They have what they call a talking house transmitter, which is kind of, as you're driving by a house for sale or whatever, you can listen on an AM or FM station, and it talks about what all the, why you should spend all this money on this house, etc. Another use of Part 15 transmitters that some folks sometimes hear about during the holidays is, and I remember this, every now and then you'll sometimes see this, where you might have a house during Christmas time that goes all out in terms of their Christmas decorations, and they have tons of lights, and then they might say, tune to, again, 92.3 FM on your car radio, and you'll hear, some Christmas music or something. And as you drive by their house, you look at all the lights and you hear some Christmas music on the car radio. Sometimes you think, well, how exactly do they do that? Do they do that legally? Well, they use a Part 15 transmitter, and that's how you can do it. So, I even saw an example of that this Christmas. There was this one street that had all these Christmas lights that were synced up and would all, flash and kind of be coordinated to music, and you can tune to an FM frequency, and you can listen to the Christmas music that it's all synced to, and that's how they did it, again, through a Part 15 transmitter, and they could do that legally. That's, if an FCC agent were there and drove down the street, it's not a pirate station, it's perfectly legal under those guidelines. Now, theoretically, you can get very exact, and you can have devices that'll measure the signal after a certain distance, and, if it's over whatever this level of microvolts per meter or something, then it's no longer Part 15 compliant. But again, most of these transmitters, it never gets to that point. If you buy an honest, legitimate one, you're not going to run into any issues. It will never be visited by the FCC. Don't worry about it. So that's what it comes down to. But yeah, you're in good luck. That's how you do it, and perfectly by the book. No one will give you any problems for it. And it's one of those things a lot of people don't really know, that you can have, a mini radio station. You're not going to reach anyone unless, you live maybe in, downtown New York City, and then you might be able to reach, people in your apartment building and maybe the apartment building across the street or something, and, then you might get a couple of listeners. But for most folks, you won't reach anyone, but this is just for personal use, really. Don't get a Part 15 transmitter and expect to, suddenly get a high-rated radio station, because it won't reach anyone. Then I think you'd be better off just doing something online or purchasing airtime. But, yeah, for the reason you're talking about, that's how it's done. So, very good. Wish you the best of luck there. It's something you could do, and I think it would be a lot of fun. There have been some thoughts of my own to maybe buy a Part 15 AM transmitter and set it up somewhere, but I've I have no real reason to do that, so I've thought, no, it's just a waste in my circumstance. Barbara in Portugal writes in with a suggestion. Got a little tongue-tied there. Hey, Report of the Week, hope everything is fine with you. I've been subscribed to your channel for a year now. Besides the very entertaining videos, your style always interested me because, in a certain way, it's vintage. I think you have a very 30s/40s vibe in terms of style. Well, since I get that style from you, I would like to ask if maybe you can do a video/podcast talking about the old stuff that fascinates you the most. And you can go from old Hollywood to the personalities you admire the most, like actresses or singers. I'm pretty young, but I love to see things from the past. So thank you, Barbara, in Portugal, for your suggestion there. Much appreciated. I know that the way I am is a bit of an anomaly. In many ways I can be old-fashioned, but I don't really have any clear identity in terms of what, time period I am. I don't know, I just am what I am. It's not like I can say I'm obsessed with, the 1940s, right? And all I wear are 1940s suits, and all I listen to is big band music, and all I only want to drive a 1940s car, and I only want to, enjoy the pastimes that were popular then. I'm not one of those people. I mean, I just am what I am. I don't know, there's no word for it. I just simply am. Yeah, some of the things that I like are old-fashioned. Shortwave radio is a medium that's pushing 100 years old now. It's been around a very long time. The clothing that I wear is not 1940s. It's actually modeled after the 1980s and 90s, but the clothing in the 1980s and 90s, formal menswear I'm talking about, were in a way modeled after the 1940s, and, it's like, I don't know, rip-off 1940s clothes. But that's one thing. A lot of the music I listen to, though, is iffy. I will listen to a lot of classic rock, but I'll also listen to stuff from the 90s, the 2000s, and even the 2010s. I mean, this... Earlier, I was listening to songs from 2019, then I was listening to some music from 2011, and then the next song I'm listening to is from the 60s. So, I mean, I listen to some older music, but I listen to lots of contemporary stuff, too. And it's just like I'm all over the place, I guess. I just am what I am. But thank you for the suggestions. Suggestions of any nature are appreciated, so thank you for sending that in, Barbara. Good to hear from you. We have let's see what our next email is. Well, let's get a sip of water first. Oh, I know I'm going all out. This next email comes in from Dexter, who says, I'm a big fan of your work. Your radio show is helping me get through tough times in college. Here is a topic that you might be interested in discussing in your future broadcasts. So you include a little bit of a passage that I'll just read and I'll let it speak for itself. It's from a report about mega trends and predictions for 2030. And, before we get into that, you also have a question. What did you major in college? Well, when I went to college, I majored in communication. But I don't really know if that would be a profession outside of YouTube that I would really actually go into, because one thing through all of that I realized, especially in terms of communication, it's a profession that's very good for people who are very, very extroverted and love constantly being out and doing things and speaking to people and going here and there, and that's not me. You know, I can talk at a microphone, but I'm just not one of those people, so I don't really think that's anything for me. But anyway, so you send in this passage here, Megatrends and Related Tectonic Shifts. So this is predictions for 2030. The full report can be found at publicintelligence.net/global-trends-2030. So that's the full report. Megatrend 1, Individual Empowerment. Individual empowerment will accelerate substantially during the next 15 to 20 years, owing to poverty reduction and a huge growth of the global middle class, greater educational attainment, and better health care. The growth of the global middle class constitutes a tectonic shift. For the first time, a majority of the world's population will not be impoverished, and the middle classes will be the most important social and economic sector in the vast majority of countries around the world. Individual empowerment is the most important megatrend because it is both a cause and effect of most other trends, including the expanding global economy, rapid growth of developing countries, and widespread exploitation of new communications and manufacturing technologies. On one hand, we see the potential for greater individual initiative as key to solving the mounting global challenges over the next 15 to 20 years. On the other hand, in a tectonic shift, individuals and small groups will have greater access to lethal and disruptive technologies, particularly precision strike capabilities, cyber instruments, and bioterror weaponry, enabling them to perpetrate large-scale violence, capability formerly the monopoly of states. Megatrend 2, Diffusion of Power. Diffusion of power among countries will have a dramatic impact by 2030. Asia will have surpassed North America and Europe combined in terms of global power based upon GDP, population size, military spending, and technological investment. China alone will probably have the largest economy, surpassing that of the United States a few years before 2030. In a tectonic shift, the health of the global economy increasingly will be linked to how well the developing world does, more so than the traditional West. In addition to China, India, and Brazil, regional players such as Colombia, Indonesia, Nigeria, South Africa, and Turkey will become especially important to the global economy. Meanwhile, the economies of Europe, Japan, and Russia are likely to continue their slow relative declines. The shift in national power may be overshadowed by an even more fundamental shift in the nature of power. Enabled by communications technologies, power will shift toward multifaceted and amorphous networks that will form to influence state and global actions. These countries, with some of the strongest fundamentals, GDP, population size, etc., will not be able to punch their weight unless they learn to operate in networks and coalitions in a multipolar world. Megatrend 3, demographic patterns. We believe that in the world of 2030, a world in which a growing global population will have reached somewhere close to 8.3 billion people, up from 7.1 billion in 2012, 4 demographic trends will fundamentally shape, although not necessarily determine, most countries' economic and political conditions and relations among countries. These trends are aging, a tectonic shift for both the West and increasingly most developing countries, a still significant but shrinking number of youthful societies and states, migration, which will increasingly be a cross-border issue, and growing urbanization, another tectonic shift, which will spur economic growth, but could put new strains on food and water resources. Aging countries will face an uphill battle in maintaining their living standards. Demand for both skilled and unskilled labor will spur global migration, owing to rapid urbanization in the developing world. The volume of urban construction for housing, office space, and transport services over the next 40 years could roughly equal the entire volume of such construction to date in world history. And megatrend number 4, growing food, water, and energy nexus. Demand for food, water, and energy will grow by approximately 35%, 40%, and 50% respectively, owing to an increase in the global population and the consumption patterns of an expanding middle class. Climate change will worsen the outlook for the availability of these critical resources. Climate change analysis suggests that the severity of existing weather patterns will intensify, with wet areas getting wetter and dry and arid areas becoming more so. Much of the decline in precipitation will occur in the Middle East and Northern Africa, as well as Western Central Asia, Southern Europe, Southern Africa, and the U.S. Southwest. We are not necessarily headed into a world of scarcities, but policymakers and their private sector partners will need to be proactive to avoid such a future. Many countries probably won't have the wherewithal to avoid food and water shortages without massive help from outside. Tackling problems pertaining to one commodity won't be possible without affecting supply and demand for the others. Agriculture is highly dependent on accessibility to adequate sources of water as well as on energy-rich fertilizers. Hydropower is a significant source of energy for some regions, while new sources of energy, such as biofuels, threaten to exacerbate the potential for food shortages. There is as much scope for negative trade-offs as there is the potential for positive synergies. Agricultural productivity in Africa particularly will require a sea change to avoid shortages, unlike Asia and South America, which have achieved significant improvements in agricultural production per capita. Africa has only recently returned to 1970s levels. So that's an excerpt of this document here. If anyone found that interesting, again, you can find more at publicintelligence.net/globaltrends2030. So thank you, Dexter, for your views and for sharing that. Sometimes I wonder with these predictions, for the world in the coming decade, because it all depends, it's like every group has a different view of what's going to happen. I mean, I still remember in 2011, which I can't believe that's a decade ago now. Isn't that crazy? Wow. It's like that's one of those things that just hits you. But I remember in 2011, 10 years ago, watching a video on YouTube, the world in 2020, 10 years in the future. And of course, now here we are talking about 2030, 10 years from now. But that video from that I saw in 2011 about what they felt the world in 2020 would be proved to be very inaccurate. It was not like how they said it would be at all. And it was definitely inaccurate in that regard, where they said everything in your house would be smart and touchscreen, be that your bedside table, to your bathroom mirror, to your kitchen counter, everything is smart and internet connected. And obviously that's not the case. There's some smart devices, but not everyone's along with that either. I don't want to live in a smart house. I want to have a lamp that I can simply turn on and off as it is, and I just want it to be a lamp. I don't want it to be an internet-connected lamp. I don't want it to be a lamp connected to an Alexa device. I don't even want an Alexa device or a Google Home or any of that in my house. I just want it to be a house, a non-smart house, with regular inanimate objects. That's just the way I want to live. Doesn't mean that everyone else has to do that. That's just my take. I just want my refrigerator to be a refrigerator. I want my bathroom mirror to be a bathroom mirror. I don't need for it to be a smart internet-connected device. I don't need that. But either way, that's how they predicted the world would be in 2020, and, well, it's not. So, we'll see. We'll see how this is. So, we'll see. Of course, one thing that always catches my attention whenever I think of 2030, of course, I always think of the UN Agenda 2030. That's just something you'll have to research on your own. Anyway, for tonight's broadcast, we have 2 more emails. Abigail in St. Louis writes in, just wanted to send a quick hello and a few words of encouragement. I've been following you for probably a couple of years now with your Report of the Week channel on YouTube, and your content never disappoints. Recently, I've been listening to your VORW podcast while working, and wanted to say that your content, voice, demeanor, just everything, is very professional and well done. I enjoy tuning in when I can, usually on YouTube, but I recently subscribed on SoundCloud as well, and love hearing something interesting and thoughtful playing in the background. Please keep up the good work. I know you get many mixed reactions from countless people regarding the content you produce, but in my opinion, your community is one of the most wholesome and decent groups of people I've come across online. It clearly shows how much people look up to you as a role model. You're setting a great example to many. Well, thank you, Abigail, for your kind words. I can't say anything in that regard about the community, but all I know is that the folks who listen in, I know people have different views and opinions, and I respect that. But when I go through the comments and through the emails, such a wonderful group of people that tune into this show. It really is. And on a final note, we have this comment. I first knew you as a meme, and haven't really watched any of your videos until last month. Once I started, damn, it was something. I watch your videos and listen to your podcast whenever I'm eating or walking along the sidewalk, mostly because you have a very soothing voice and a very descriptive style of commenting things. You seemed down sometimes. I can't really say much to you, but you're a big deal everywhere. I mean, if you're a meme, then that of itself is a big deal. I really look up to you, man. I listen whenever I'm down and whatnot, and you give me comfort, so you're doing good. Things are good. This is coming from a South Korean Gen Z teen right here. People think of us as strict people with high standards, but some of us are just normal. I'm just a normal kid who spent half of my childhood in Chicago, so I'm not particularly fluent in Korean, but I'm getting used to it. Question. What was your profession at high school, and what did you want to be? So thank you, number one, for your kind words. It really means a lot to hear that, you tune into this broadcast, and I really appreciate it. And I think that's a good point, I think, the cultural differences, sometimes it gets the best of a lot of people, and, we look at certain places a certain way, but we're all human. We're all people in the end. Sometimes we do things differently and we have different ways of looking at things, but we're all people in the end. And, well, let's see. In terms of high school, let's just look at high school, for instance. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. I had no clue. I was thinking, well, maybe I'll become an office worker or something. And just do that, maybe find some white-collar data entry job or, sit in a cubicle and answer phones or something. And that's it. I know those aren't very high aspirations, but that was one thing that I thought of doing, maybe. There were times where I even thought of just maybe getting into more... Because I'm not one of those people with big... And, big expectations. I didn't say, I want to be, this, and this. I want to be CEO, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a movie star or something. It's like, I'm okay with delivering pizzas. I'm okay with working as a, if I have to, work as a clerk at a convenience store or stock shelves in the middle of the night. I'm okay doing that stuff. I don't know. There's nothing degrading about that sort of work. People act like if you're some sort of subhuman trash. No, you have to have, remember we talked about money. No, you have to have a job that makes money, right? You gotta make a lot of money. But again, even those sorts of jobs, there's, but I don't know, people have different views of them, I get it. But I really just had no clue what I wanted to do in life. So, very fortunately, the YouTube and everything happened to take off in a time, right after that, and everything pretty much just went in that way, which is incredible, because before that, I was completely lost in terms of profession. There was no calling one way or another, there was none. So it all just kind of worked itself out, but obviously in a bout of some very good luck at that. And with that, dear listeners, that's all that we have for you today. Any feedback is welcome at vorwinfo@gmail.com. I'm sorry that the show today was, I know some would call it a downer, but, you never know what you're going to get. So just please hang in there. It's just, I think, the state of this world full of negative energy at this point. But who knows, by the time we reconvene again at the microphone, maybe a week or two from now, maybe things will be better, who knows. We'll see what happens. We'll take it, day by day, one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. With that, please be safe, be healthy wherever you are. Be a good person, be respectful to each other. Until next time, I wish you all the very best. Take care, this is VORW.